Hey guys, Dr. Deb and Dr. Joe here. Welcome back. Monday Night Live is back.
What's up? What's going
on? Took a little break, a little long.
A little tan.
Oh yeah, long needed rest and relaxation, and even more than that because we got to hang out with some really fabulous docs from around the world, and that in and of itself breeds just the most amazing conversations. It almost seems like there's not a single wasted moment.
No, it's a constant conversation, pouring in, understanding each other. So I suggest you take vacations with people you like and enjoy to be with.
For sure, you've done it both ways.
We'll be covering some of that, I'm sure, at some point in time in the next series.
So tonight, I'm sure you can see by the wheel up above, we're talking about the 7 pillars of a successful life. When you look at the definitions of life and living, a lot of times we're just spending so much time going through the process of living that we forget to make a decision about how we want to live a life. And we just live a life that kind of sometimes isn't even really something that we dreamed of. It's really going along with someone else's dream or something that we feel like just kind of fell upon us, that we fell into. And so it's our mission to change lives by transforming them. And we can only transform by knowledge, by knowing, by understanding where we are and where we want to go.
And for me, and for really both of us, this thing's a moving target. So when we come through this, don't think it's coming from a place of perfection.
No.
When we teach this, right? So it's a place of a journey, and you're always striving to search and seek and learn the next thing. So don't think that anybody that's mastered it has mastered it, because it's a very difficult thing, or impossible, if you will, to master it. But I will tell you that we're going to have a lot of great speakers come on, and we're going to have people hitting in and diving into each section. And I think it's going to be pretty powerful. So we've got a crazy lineup for what we're talking about, but we've got some important things to kind of hit first. So I think you should tackle that.
Yeah. Hey, Mary. So if you know anybody that needs to listen in, that needs to...
Great point.
Yeah, that might need, even if it's just one area, just some really great knowledge to be fed, some good information from great people who've seen great success in these areas, then invite them in, invite them. The more people that we touch, the greater change, the greater impact that we can have. And, isn't it true that we all want to serve in some way? We all want to do well. Yeah. And we want to see other people do well. I would say that for most of humanity. So if you know that people can learn and grow, that can use a little maybe intellectual maturity in different areas, whether it's your kids or your friends, even your parents in different ways. We didn't all grow up learning how to handle finances or how to create what we're going to talk about in a minute, like balance. But we hear about balance all the time. Something that I can say about that is balance is BS. There's no such thing. The definition of balance is, right, all things equal, but all things can't be equal if we're going to have a successful life. And I know that sounds confusing. So we're going to dive into that. But if you don't mind, I'm going to jump up on the board here and talk about what the 7 pillars are, what they include. And so let me come back here. So for everybody, there's going to be a different, each of these pillars is going to land at a different level of importance. So just understand that we're not going in any particular order.
And not only that, you're also going to have, in each of these pillars, you're going to need more in one pillar and less in others. So although you may not be like, oh no, I have that mastered, like spirituality, I got it nailed. I think sometimes when I think I own it so much and I listen to somebody and I hear it, I get that extra 1 or 2 things out of it, is when I'm like, whoa, right? And then the ones I'm totally lost in sometimes, and I dive in, I'm like, I'm going to get all this data, and it's so much sometimes, or it's so like, you just don't, it's always the opposite almost. So like, just because you think you may have got this thing down, I will promise you, we'll surprise you with some of these. Like, I think we got.
Yeah, well, the growth never stops.
Right.
I mean, you would be amazed at the amount of time. One of the things that we say in our office is that we see patients between training. And so we're constantly working on building our team up, how we think, how we communicate, how we handle situations. And along the way, as we're teaching them, we're constantly learning, because as much as we think we know, we never know at all. So this is where I'm going to write these things on here. And I just want you to understand that you may be in a different place today than you are if you revisit this 6 months or a year or 5 years from now. So it's my highest recommendation that you take all of this in and understand that we're going to get into what balance means, but it doesn't mean that you have to be fully focused with all your time, energy, your focus, your finances in all areas at all times. That would ultimately be balance, right? But there's no such thing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So, one of the most important things to many people is family. For some, that'll be at the top of the list. For others, we don't have children, but our family, our parents, the two of us, Enzo, are really important to us. So we make sure that as one of our core values, family is important, and we think our way through that. Another thing is spirituality. And that can be, for some people, going to church on Sunday or doing your meditation. There's no judgment in the kind of spirituality that you practice, but we both make sure to make time on a daily basis to make sure that our spirituality is leading the way for all of this.
And another thing, too, is when you go through these, as we hear the list, it's important to, I would think about these, how you handle these pre-COVID and how you're handling during COVID, right? So I think these have changed dramatically for many people in the midst of this crazy, stupid pandemic. But at the same token, there has been things that have gone better and things that have gone worse inside of this.
Well, and some things that were like, man, this is the most awful thing that's ever happened, but something good has actually come out of it.
So like I would challenge your thinking as you go through these, and we'll go week to week. Remind yourself where you were about a year ago or so, and then where you are now. What's been better, what's been worse, what's been, where have you gone on this? So as you go through these, just earmark that, and we'll go week to week as we bring in different people and talk around this stuff. We'll be able to kind of break it down. And but it's always a good, and I'll remind you of that a week to week, but it's just good to reflect on it, because what's different this year may be different, like you're saying, next year, which may be different in 6 months, which, changes all the time.
Yeah. And that's why it's important. And we'll get into this later on too, on another day, is goals. When you're setting goals, you may be working toward the same goals, but need different objectives to get there. Or your goals may actually change because the state of the world has changed. The state of your finances changed. And that may bring about new opportunities or crush opportunities that you will work on. So, we have to remain flexible. Water, when you look at water is fluid. Right? There's a current, there's a currency. And when we're rigid and we don't take the time to analyze life and how it's moving, then we miss the possibility of growth and change, and we get stuck. So this is one of those things that we thought would be really important to help you if you felt like you might be stuck, or you just don't feel like you have the intellectual maturity to grow out of the place where you are. We all get there, and we get stuck in a lot of different places at a lot of different times. And that's why we revisit. Ooh, excuse me.
And I do believe that, like, when you feel uncomfortable around it, that's exactly the place you need the most work at. Financials. Right, finances. Next.
Oh, keep going? Yeah. Okay. Intellect. What is intellect?
I have no idea.
That's how we roll. And that's it, folks. Thanks for joining us.
I think it's in so many different levels of intellect, of like intellectual maturity in yourself. Well, how do you see yourself? Intellect on what you're bringing into your home and learning. Intellect about what you fill your space up with in between lunch and dinner. And like, so there's all these different layers of intellect. There's so many things you can do to fill your brain up. And so I think often we fill it up with a bunch of garbage. And so we're going to dive in and tear that apart. And we've got some killer ideas around that to really break down and show you how to capture intellectual the proper way. So,
all right. This is something that you guys are going to really identify from this past year. Social.
Yeah, so I think probably the hardest one there's two that are really, actually, there's all of them really, but during COVID, social for many of you has been shut down, and so it's been a piece that's just been ripped away. And as a human, we need that. That's exactly what we're supposed to have. So.
I mean, you may not know that, but this is a time, and we've talked about this on previous Monday Night Lives if you've been with us, that we've seen the statistics are showing that we have more depression, more anxiety, more people on medication. We're sicker than we ever were, even though, people who are dying being called something else. Yeah, suicide rate is up at astronomical numbers. We have a need to be with other human beings. What's happening now is not natural and it's not healthy. So we'll dive a little deeper into that. Physical.
Huge.
This has to do with fun, fitness, right? And why shouldn't both of those go together? I used to work out like a maniac. There was a time that it was fun, and then it didn't become fun anymore. So I had to find new ways to get physically fit without feeling like it's torture, right? Because our physiology, even our joy and our happiness, depend on how physically fit the cells inside of our bodies are. So it's important that we make that, an important part of our daily routine. And then professional.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah. So, some of you are already in the place where you want to be.
Get to the next one, David. We're going to do the next slide.
This next slide?
Okay.
Okay. Go or don't go?
Go.
See, this is what keeps us going. This is what keeps a marriage alive. It's important. Communication is key. All right. So where you spend your time, your energy, your focus, and your finances, think about this. That really, more than anything, shows what's important to you. Where you put your money, we all have a decision that we have to make. Oftentimes we have people come into the office and they're not willing to spend the money that they need to on care. Okay, that's fine if care isn't really what they want, but oftentimes we hear people telling us that they want to be healthier, that they want to live the fullest expression of life and health, but they're in too much pain or they're lacking their health and they're not capable of doing it. But they come in and I see them, and again, no judgment. I see them spending their money in other ways. So that shows us what's really important to them. We do the same thing in different ways. So where we put our focus, where we spend our time, where we spend our money and our energy, these are the things that are important to us. And so if you write these 4 down, time, energy, focus, and finance, and I want you to really think about, write it down on your own when we're done, where you spend those things, where you put most of your focus, where you spend most of your money, aside from the absolute necessities like your mortgage or paying for your groceries. And that's going to show you where the things that you find the most important. And then when you look at them, you might be like, you know what? That's actually not that important to me.
Well, and that's going to step you into, your core values, which is going to bring into that. So let me give you a quick example. So if you're going out every day and twice a day, you're going to Starbucks, okay? And you're spending $6 on a latte, and it's twice a day, and that's $12 a day, 5 days a week, say, and you're at, what is that? $60 a week times 4 is $200 and something a month, right? And you don't realize that adds up fast. That's
$2,400 a year.
25 something
on coffee.
Right. So
yes, that was my Jersey accent.
Yeah.
Fluffy.
So it adds up fast. So what happens is if your core values, or those are the things that are the most important things, we're going to break those down in deeper conversation with you. But the core values of who you are and what's important to you. And so if spending money on that kind of stuff, it's like, I want to be more giving. I want to give more.
I want to serve more.
I want to serve more and do more. And you're like, but I wish I had the money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I
wish I had the time.
I wish I had the time to do that. So then, but if you look at what you're doing, you're spending money on $12 a day of coffee, when you could have pulled back that money and spent it on something that you wanted to serve or give
Yeah,
to.
or the 20 minutes that it took for you to go to Starbucks, order the coffee, wait in line. Maybe you could have spent that time sitting, at work, or sitting, in a nice dark place, quiet, listening to meditation music or learning something.
Like, so this morning on the way to work today, I was listening to a podcast, and it was interesting. He said, listen to a guy talk about how he's learning from all the experts every day. He spends 8 hours a day listening to all the different people talking and collaborating, and he gets all the tapes, and he gets all the podcasts, and he listens. And the guy was like, I don't understand why I can't get my business to go. And basically he's like, because you're not creating, you're just listening, right? So, and the part of that is the guy didn't have his own vision story, right? So he didn't know what he believed in, he didn't know what he owned, and then because of that, he didn't have the right story to tell himself. And that's important, and because we all get lost in that. I think it's a big deal. Like, our stories change, our times change, and then you get confused in what your story is.
And sometimes we get stuck in a replay. Right? We replay the things that were important to us when we were 20 or 30, but now we're 40 or 50, and our ideals have changed, or we're in a different place in life. We don't have to keep telling ourselves the same story. You can reinvent yourself. You don't have to stay where you were.
Which leads to the behaviors, right? So what happens is what story are you telling yourself and others, and then how are you acting in those behaviors? So, like, for that guy, that example was, he was listening. His behaviors were, I want to get more knowledge. But his story was that all he needed was more knowledge to be more successful. Well, without a place to go and take that and be creative around it, he literally will never have a story. Like, it'll always be.
It won't be his story.
It won't be his story. Yeah, it'll be somebody else's story, not his story, because he doesn't know what he really values. And so we want to break that down for you. I think it's a massive thing, and not only important for you. These conversations, and this is really, really important. I know it's late, it's 8 o'clock, but we'll have them set up again. But I think more importantly, more than anything else, I think these are going to be directed to adults with an undertone going to children. So the entire time we're talking, I am, at least I know you will too, we'll be speaking through you to your kids. And I think more now than ever before. And I would almost make this towards kids if I could. I love you as well, but the kids need it more. And because I've never seen a point in history where children are lost like they are right now. And they need some leadership and guidance, and they need to find themselves on who they are and what direction to go in. Because the world's telling them everything else from the outside, what they should or shouldn't do, and how they should or shouldn't act, and who they should or shouldn't be. And I think once that captures a young mind, we're in trouble. And I think raising these children up to understand these 7 pillars and talk through these core values and have the proper vision story, so they have the proper beliefs, so they can go out and change the world, to me, is critical inside these conversations.
Moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles. This is so critical. These kids are not learning critical thinking. I mean, let's just call it what it is. No offense to the public school system or teachers that are teaching it, but we're teaching children how to do what we say, and not how to think their way through a process. And right now we're in some crazy times that are confusing. It's really confusing for a child. It's confusing for me. I literally get anxiety. We traveled this week, and what happens every time I go on a plane?
You sleep?
I did this time because the airline attendant did not wake me up and make me pull my mask off. but I start to sweat. I get anxiety, and it's because I'm wearing this mask. And these things are becoming normal for children. If they're young while all of this is happening, this means that this is a norm, and normal is not the same as common, right? The things that are becoming normal should just I wish it wasn't even common, but it should just be a commonality. When people aren't thinking for themselves and taking care of themselves and taking responsibility for themselves, then we're doing children a disservice, because they're not learning how to take responsibility.
And that's why understanding the 7 pillars, understanding the core values, having the right vision story, and then behaviors. And then for parents and adults around that, even children, understanding that balance versus equilibrium. Because I think today, even too, kids put so much stress on themselves to be perfect because the world portrays that they should be. And I also watched all these families come and go in our practice that are running 24/7 wild.
Yeah.
And so there is no way there could be balance. There only can be some type of equilibrium inside the household.
And watch out for your first child.
Yeah,
they're usually the ones that strive the hardest to get the best grades and be the best in their sport and make sure they're pleasing everybody. It's parenting is a tough gig, man.
So that's going to be our focus for the next 7 weeks. So we're looking forward to it. Looking forward to jumping on. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a great 7 weeks to dive into.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be the best series
I agree. This is, to me, like
that we've talked about.
This is nuts and bolts. Like, I love, obviously we do health every day. That's what we do. But this stuff is what's got us to the place and continually striving to get there to fulfill our missions and purposes in life. So as we do this, we're always working on this and refining this. Yeah. We had a training with our doctors today about this. It was pretty interesting. So it's constantly a learning back and forth.
So, you know, one of the things that we have come to realize that the more we've learned about what our core values are, what the most important things are to us, we figured out where and how to spend our time, our energy, our money, and our focus. Because we created the vision story, we were able to change our behaviors to make sure that this has equilibration rather than trying to balance everything out and feel like a failure because you can't do it. Yeah. This all plays in together. So each and every week, we are going to have some of the people that we love and respect and that we've learned from, that we honor because they've learned how to do a lot of these things, most of these things, or all of these things right. And so we've handpicked certain people that have families and have businesses and are very financially mature and are making sure that they're looking at their goals and their core values and all of that to make sure that they're living a healthy, happy, full life. So if you're interested in that and you have friends or family that are interested in that, I hope that you will join us over the next 7 weeks. Don't miss it. Put it on your calendar. And we're going to be putting out a series of invites on Facebook, right? Yeah. And on some of the other social media so that people are aware of where we are, what we're talking about, and bring your kids on.
Yeah, I challenge you that.
Yeah, and if you're not bringing them on, then take the information, sit with your spouse or your significant other or whoever it is that you may be making decisions with or can help lead or guide you through this, and then decide how you're going to approach your kids and include them in on it. Because again, it's massive. Yeah, this is life, and this is about how we are going to live life no matter what the circumstances. So the choice in how we are affected by the things that are going on, it's a choice. It's hard, but it's a choice. And how we're going to live our lives through what's happening in the world are completely and entirely up to you. And I know that you can live your best life ever regardless. So I'm glad that you're here joining us, and I hope you'll be with us for the next 7 weeks to come.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. You want to shut that off? Because I always do a really bad job. Bye, y'all.